1959, Colombo, in the early hours of a September morning. A Buddhist monk is in quiet meditation in a small, empty room. It is still dark outside. The monk stands and drapes his siura, the saffron robes, about him. He gathers his papers and places them in a cloth bag. His face is tight with grim determination. Then he takes a revolver from the table and tucks it carefully beneath his robes. It is 1956 and Bandaranayke's Mahajana Eksath Peramuna, the coalition his SLFP has formed with left parties, has been ushered into power as the UNP, seen as Western and corrupt, is voted out. The MEP is now expected to enact a series of initiatives to bring Sinhala Buddhism to the fore and conduct major economic and social reforms. Sir John is returned to Parliament, but he decides to leave for Britain, to a farm in Kent. On the first day of the new Parliament, Prime Minister SWRD Bandaranayke's first act is to cross the floor of the House, shake Sir John's hand and pat him on the shoulder. He even secures exchange control releases for the large amount of money that Sir John needs to buy his country estate. The Bandaranayke premiership is a culture shock. Horse racing is banned, there is no more alcohol at official functions, and Sinhala is given more prominence in official media. The change is received well by the people. On 21st April 1956, the first day Parliament reconvenes, people burst into the floor of the House from the public gallery and take turns sitting in the Speaker's chair. But promises need to be kept. Sinhala only is being demanded as national policy, and the bhikkhus needed to be appeased. Some of them are intractable in their narrow-mindedness. Instead of rejecting these extremist views, SWRD tries to broker a solution with them. He believes he is in the middle of a transition between eras of the country, and he plans to negotiate between the two. He refers to himself as both a nurse at a deathbed and a midwife at a birth. Quickly, Bandaranayke formally introduces the Sinhala Only Bill, a short and devastating piece of legislation. But the hardliners feel the bill does not go far enough. Knowing that the new PM has a reputation for meeting people in person, a university teacher even stages a hunger strike on the steps of the Parliament. The hardliners sharpen the law. Draft clauses that would have made allowances for English and Tamil or the transition to Sinhala easier on the public are dropped. The country goes into shock. Tamil speakers across the island are shaken, and in majority Tamil areas, people shutter their shops. Armed Sinhala groups go on a rampage of looting. 200 protesters staging a satyagraha or non-violent protest on Gaulface Green are disbanded violently. The police are called in. Across the island, there are pockets of escalating communal tensions. Tamil rioters, in response to the violence at Gaulface Green, shoot at Sinhalese government officials. But the worst violence happens in Galloya, in the southeast of Ceylon, an originally Tamil-dominated community that has been repopulated with Sinhalese through D.S. Senanayaka's land reforms. Sinhala gangs take over the area and terrorize the Tamil community for days. Though no official estimates exist, it is believed that over 100 people lost their lives. The army is called in and planned protest marches are stopped. The 1956 anti-Tamil pogrom and particularly the Galloya riots are one of the worst episodes of Ceylon's history, particularly as the state is thought to be complacent in their response. No matter how hard Bandaranayke would try to reverse or soften the impact of the Sinhala Only Bill, the floodgates have now been opened. Tamil politicians from the Federal Party believe that the delays to the passage of the bill, which Bandaranayke said he would pass in 24 hours, provides a window of opportunity. They issue an ultimatum. They demand an end to the bill and a separate federal state. A solution would be needed by August 1957, or there would be direct action, meaning strikes and protests. After the inevitable passage of the Sinhala Only Bill, the PM tries to get on with his reforms program, but the government is plagued with delays. The ministers themselves are a mixed bag, and they usually receive petitioners at home, holding court on the verandas of their large homes or valavas. This kind of direct access is hugely popular but slows the system down. Over the course of the next 2 years, there are a few modest successes in Bandaranayke's cabinet. C.P. De Silva, the man from the south, serves as Minister of Lands, Irrigation and Power and Leader of the House, is a seasoned agriculturalist. In 1957, after a particularly harsh rain, the Minneria tank was about to breach its bund and devastate the area nearby. De Silva had driven a bulldozer himself to cut the bund and divert floodwaters. He jumps out of the bulldozer just in time. Pieces of the heavy vehicle are found distributed far downstream. This act of heroism earns him the title Minneria Devio, or God of Minneria. There are other initiatives too: creation of the National Transport Board and nationalization of bus services to better serve the public. In his foreign policy, Bandaranaike claims the status of non-aligned from a pro-Western foreign policy outlook to create ties with socialist nations. But there is plenty of bungling too, mostly by the PM himself. Philip Gunawardena, a socialist icon and one of the brightest lights of the government, envisions a complete upliftment of rural life through changes to the Paddy Lands Bill, distributing land and power more evenly. Interests are cleaved between Gunawardena and his colleagues, many of whom are paddy landowners themselves. Bandaranaike admires Gunawardena but needs a win. He takes it on himself to pass this great piece of reform and tries to play between the right and left, but somehow ends up giving in far more than anticipated to right-wing vested interests. In February 1958, the weakened bill is passed. SWRD is not looking very powerful. There are some in his cabinet that Bandaranaike thinks are dullards. He finds the Minister of Health, Mrs. Vimala Wijewardena, the first female cabinet minister, insufferably ignorant and snubs her openly. She would remember this. Meanwhile, time is running out for Bandaranaike to present a solution for the Tamils. There is still simmering sporadic violence. 2 Tamils trying to hoist a black flag on February 4, 1957 in protest are killed by a sniper. The next month, he introduces a 3-point plan to address the Tamil issue after running it by leading bhikkhus: autonomy for majority Tamil areas, safeguard of fundamental rights and provision for reasonable use of the Tamil language. This would be a disaster for him. Federal party leaders reject the proposal and plan to move forward with their agitation in August. Meanwhile, J.R. Jayawardena of the UNP, who has long been a proponent of Sinhala only, starts on a campaign of fear-mongering. Taking a hard stance on pro-Sinhala, anti-Tamil sentiment, J.R. destroys the 3-point plan as a concession to an anti-Sinhalese minority at the expenses of promises unkept to the majority. The irony of the UNP pushing a hardline stance on Bandaranaike when he was stirring Sinhala chauvinism just a decade earlier is somehow lost on everyone. Bandaranaike negotiates with Federal Party leader S.J.V. Chelvanayakam on issues related to the Tamil language, autonomy in majority Tamil areas, and population of lands in majority Tamil areas. Bandaranaike insists that regional councils, his own brainchild, would be vested with handling issues in Tamil majority territories. Nothing is specific, but on these promises, by 25th July, they form a fuzzy pact. JR and the rest of the UNP are provoked into a vocal campaign. The press follow, screaming headlines that the Bandaranaike-Chelvanayakam pact is a treachery. On the other side, G.G. Ponnambalam calls it an abject surrender to the Sinhalese. Most people didn't mind or care at all. But UNP and Sinhala Buddhist hardliners make a major show of their protest. Tamil signage across the country is tar-brushed. The Sinhala Shri lettering on motor vehicle license plates in the north are defaced. On 9th April 1958, 150 bhikkhus march on Rosmead Place in Colombo, the PM's residence. He goes down to meet them at the police cordon. They are unplacated. Later that afternoon, faced with the prospect of violently removing the monks, he drives to Radio Ceylon and makes the announcement. The pact is dissolved. The bhikkhus get further concessions on erasing Tamil language from the public domain, and the PM, now tired, promises to do what he can. In late May 1958, Tamil-led strikes lead to intense violence between Tamils and Sinhalese around the country. Property and religious sites are destroyed. There are targeted attacks on Sinhalese and Tamils. Men and women are beaten to death and burned alive. It is now a full-scale race riot. By June 3rd, martial law is imposed on north and eastern parts of the island. Official estimates put the body count at 158, but unofficially, this is said to have numbered over 1,000. The tragedy of the 58 riots is completely attributed to Bandaranayke's naivety. But accelerant was poured by the opportunists in the UNP and even the left parties. Sir Oliver, the Governor-General, is put in charge of the emergency. Federal Party members are detained at the Golface Hotel. Sinhalese rioters are kept in jail. Press is censored. When the worst subsides, Bandaranayke tries to pass through a bill on the reasonable use of Tamil, but he can't catch a break. It is challenge after challenge for him. After the riots, the left organized labor in the newly nationalized transport and port services into a series of crippling strikes. Bandaranayke finds tussling with these hard-nosed leaders almost impossible, and he cannot make them budge. Meanwhile, Philip Gunawardena, his brilliant Minister of Lands, has angered the bhikkhu known as Venerable Maapitikama Buddha Rakkitha, chief incumbent of the Kalaniya temple and a forceful right-wing playmaker in the SLFP, by calling him and those like him racketeers in yellow robes. By now, the SLFP is teetering and discipline has broken down in his cabinet. Gunawardena resigns from his portfolio and along with other leftists, leave the party and SWRD in the hands of the right-wingers. Bandaranayke uncharacteristically decides to visit a soothsayer in Matara. She informs him of ministerial trouble that can be appeased if he worships the Kataragama god. He is also told ominously that blood will flow this year. For the first time in his Buddhist life, he performs a ritual devotion. It is 26th August 1959 and glasses of milk, as per usual, are served at a cabinet meeting as an afternoon drink. C.P. De Silva, our hero with the bulldozer, takes a sip and begins to gag violently. He becomes paralyzed. Within 2 weeks, he is taken to London and diagnosed with acute poisoning. Someone had laced the milk with cobra venom. Meanwhile, Bandaranayke is preparing to address the UN General Assembly late in the month en route the Oxford Union, activities which would surely lift his spirits and public opinion of him back at home. Friday, 25th September 1959, 9:45 am. Bandaranayke is meeting petitioners at his official residence at Rosmead Place. There are 2 monks waiting among at least 60 other people. He greets the first, who promptly leaves. He bows low and greets the second, who stands up and stumbles on his robes. The monk shoots the Prime Minister 4 times with a .45 Webley Mark 6 revolver. The bullets enter his chest, wrist and thigh. Bandaranayke staggers back into a chair and says, "I'm all right," before being taken to hospital. At hospital, he dictates a message to the public and is taken into surgery for 5 hours by Dr. P.R. Anthonis and 3 other surgeons. He appears to be doing well. He urges calm and compassion towards the foolish man in robes who shot him. The following morning, he is awake, greets doctors, and gives instruction to the Governor-General, Sir Oliver, to cancel his trip to the United Nations. And then, things take a turn for the worse. Close to 7:45 in the morning, this man of tightly held contradictions, an aristocrat who thought himself a populist, a scholar and an athlete, a Christian turned Buddhist, a free-thinking radical who embraced a conservative revival, and finally a man who tried everything he could to win, takes his final breath. The assassin's name is Thalduwe Somarama Thero, an Ayurvedic physician and lecturer and an extremist. Somarama had been shot in the thigh by a sergeant on duty and detained. He soon gives up the plot. But it is not a right-wing conspiracy as most people think. The Maapitikama Buddha Rakkitha Thero of the Kalani temple has manipulated Somarama, the extremist, into acting on his behalf. The Prime Minister had refused to hand over a lucrative shipping contract to a company that Buddha Rakkitha Thero had set up and will not grant him a license for sugar manufacturing. The CID accused 7 people in the assassination plot, including the much maligned Vimala Wijewardena, Health Minister of the Bandaranayke government and supposedly Buddha Rakkitha Thero's lover. She is later acquitted. 2 days before he is hanged, Somarama Thero converts to Christianity. Bandaranayke's legacy is an expansion of the space for socialism in Sri Lanka. What he is remembered for is ushering in the Sinhala-only bill, widely considered to be the most divisive transformation that changed the face of the country forever. Catch us next week on Patta History as we dive into another story from Sri Lanka's history. A special thanks to our Patreon members for their continued support. To learn more about the benefits of Patreon membership, click on the link in our description box. Thank you for watching.